Hello again to all the things scurrying in the void. 50 or so back at it after having taken, was like a week hiatus again. I think something like that. I know I've been delaying again. After posting quite a few times the week before, I'm lazy and I'm a procrastinator. Let's just face it. Also, whenever I review a series, it's always harder to know what to say and where to start and what to talk about for it, so that always kind of delays me again. And this one, Last Exile, Fam the Silver Wing, or Ginyoku no Fam. Now, usually when I do a series, I prefer to review a series in its entirety all at once. Save some time, just go over the entirety of it, but certain things are, particularly in the anime world, are separate and divided up enough that they warrant each their own kind of review. And I did Last Exile relatively recently. Now, Sam the Silver Wing is a sequel and a continuation, but it's seems to be a different enough flavor that I kind of counted. It definitely is set in the same reality as Last Exile, but it more focuses on the character of Fam, who is newly introduced, and a lot of the main characters are entirely new, as is the villains. Plenty of old characters do show up, but they aren't as much of the focus, though they become more important as the series progresses. Now, one of the things I didn't really explain in the previous Last Exile is kind of the world situation, because the anime doesn't completely go into it. Fam does help explain things a little bit more. The events of the first movie, or series, were set on a artificial world where the two nations of Anata and Dissus were locked into war, overseen by the Guild. Essentially, they were trying to trigger the exile to take them back to a more sustainable world after having fled a disaster a long time ago. So, they have recently re-arrived in the world proper, which is where this series takes place. Where there's kind of a struggle for territory between the people who stayed behind during the apocalypse and the people who have returned through the exiles. Many of those people have reestablished kingdoms. Now, Anatorandisis seems to have landed in a spot that's far enough removed from the others that most people aren't aware of them, and they're able to more quietly observe things. But we more focus on the new characters, particularly Fam and her best friend and Jizzy, or Giselle, as they are sky pirates and do sky pirate things, stealing ships and otherwise messing with the empire of I think it's Ares. It's a federation that's essentially very anti-returner, and they've been quite violent in the past. Then, particularly after a couple years, then many years ago, when their leader, the Augusta, was killed during a big peace rally, that sort of set things off to a downward spiral. A peace rally known as the Great Race, or the Grand Race. And one of the main character Fam's dream is to host another great race, bring everyone together and happy. Now, she has a lot of the youthful naivete that some of the characters from the first one did, but she is for me, was a more enjoyable character than Klaus and Lobby. Her and Giselle for me, were easier to spend time with, particularly once they get the. I this. Then, particularly once they get together with the Princess of Tehran, hi, Amelia, who's, well, in the very beginning, essentially, during a supposed peace talk, her kingdom is wiped out. She seeks refuge with the Sky Pirates after her sister, who is a key to an exile, is taken by the Aris Federation. And it's pretty much it's about her trying to help Amelia reestablish her kingdom and doing what they can to slow down or stop the Aris Federation. Ours itself is pretty much run by the military, as the current Augusta is like 6 years old, and not everyone within there is sure that the military route is the way to go, as they are particularly trying to root out any returners and wipe them out to give space back to the people who've been displaced by them. And familiar faces like good old Dio is there from the get-go, but others like Tatiana, Alistair, and Sophia show up along the way. Elvis too. A lot of the cast does show back up in some way, shape, or form. So it's enjoyable. It's good. It's fun seeing more of the world, particularly in how everything fits together. The world building is still very solid. I'd still like to know who the heck the guild are and why they had such a position before, as there's some members of the guild are still present, but I guess a mystery for another time. They seem to have been like a group that was trained to protect the people who left, but then it's there's plenty of twists and turns for the politics of what's going on, and the you can usually see the motivations of the characters for why they're doing what they're doing. Even the villains, to some degree, not as much for one of them, but you can kind of piece together what he's doing and his reasons for doing it. So it's very well put together. The comedy is decent, but it's more of an action drama, and it's just like the last one. It's got some beautiful landscapes. I will say this one does use some awkward CG at times, particularly when they're using having the main characters in their plane seen at a distance. It's clear it's like a CG model, which looks okay if it's done very quickly, but if they hold on it, it looks a little weird, particularly how the characters look while inside it. But otherwise, I do enjoy the series as much then as much as I enjoy the main characters of this one more than the original Last Exile. I do still prefer the original Last Exile just because the story for me was more solid, and Dio was even more of a trip in that one. So I can't quite remember what I gave that one, but I know I rated it pretty high. I'm going with a 6 for Fan the Silver Wing. It's a good follow-up. It's if you enjoyed the first one, you'll probably enjoy this one. It's not strictly necessary to see the first series before this one, as they do pretty much hold up on their own, but who certain characters are and how they interact does come up more. But feeling a little lost in the world is kind of the Last Exile experience, so that doesn't really change too much. Just certain characters who are mysteriously helping out will get their backstories in Last Exile. Alright, I think that's all on this one.